The gravel scraped beneath my knees as I scrambled to stand, the rough driveway biting into my palms. The sun was beating down, but all I felt was cold. My father's hand clenched around my wrist again, yanking me back before I could get up. "Don't you ever block your sister's car again!" he snarled, dragging me another few feet across the driveway like I was some useless piece of garbage. I wasn't even blocking her car. I had stepped out for a moment to grab a textbook from the porch when she decided she needed to leave right that second. Her high-pitched whine, "Dad, she's in the way again," was all it took for him to erupt. Before I could even explain, he had grabbed me. My mom stood on the porch, arms crossed, sipping from her iced tea like it was just another day. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments, from where are you watching this video? "She wants to live here for free and take up space?" my mom called out. "That trash can's finally got some use." And with that, my dad shoved me straight into it. A plastic city trash can, the lid flung open. I hit the inside wall, the lid flapping shut behind me with a hollow bang. The stench was overwhelming. I tried to get out, but the angle made it awkward and humiliating. My sister Lena stood by her car in a designer sundress filming it on her phone. I could hear her snickering. Finally in a place that fits. I was 25. No job yet, no money, still applying for entry-level research roles after graduating in biochem. I had been staying at my parents' house just for a few weeks while saving up for a small apartment, but every day felt like a punishment for existing. My dad used to be warm when I was younger. Not loving, but decent. Until Lena turned 15. Then something shifted. She became the star of everything. Private dance school. Trips to France. When I asked for new shoes for a lab internship, they said, "Your sister needs that money for a summer intensive." Now, it was worse than neglect. It was warfare. After the trash incident, I locked myself in the basement room. The light bulb buzzed overhead. I wanted to scream, cry, something, but I just sat there, silent, rage boiling quietly. I didn't even go up for dinner. Around 11 p.m., my mom knocked not gently. "You going to stay down there and sulk, or are you going to clean up that trash you left all over the driveway?" I opened the door. Her expression didn't change. "You know what you are," she said, tapping the side of her glass. "You're a leech with a fake education. Lena's building something real. You just stink up our space." She walked off before I could answer. The next morning, they were gone. My dad left a note on the fridge. "Road trip with Lena, gone for the week, don't mess up the house." I could have taken that week to leave, but where would I go? I had $93 in my account. No job offers yet. I called the one friend I had left in town, Cassie, but she didn't pick up. Last time we talked, my mom had humiliated her for bringing poor girl vibes to our porch. I didn't blame her. Then the text came. From Lena. A photo of my suitcase. At the curb. "Oops, took a detour. Hope you like the new view." I ran outside. The suitcase was gone. My phone started buzzing again. My dad. "We dropped your stuff off," he said flatly. "You'll find it at 91st Street Shelter in Ashland. Best start learning how the world works. Let's see how you survive." Call ended. I stood there barefoot on the porch. My chest caved in like it was collapsing under its own weight. I was 300 miles from Ashland. But they actually did it. They left me there, in a house without my clothes, without my ID, no keys. They took everything. My laptop, my research notes, even my worn-out backpack. Gone. And all I could hear was my mom's voice in my head. "You stink up our space." And something inside me snapped. Not with rage, with purpose. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I stood up straight and walked to the neighbors. Mrs. Talia, an elderly woman who always asked me about my studies, opened the door with wide eyes when she saw my state. "Sweetheart, what happened to you?" I didn't lie. I told her everything. And you know what she said? "Well, I think it's about time someone taught them how survival actually works." She handed me $40 and the card of her nephew, Malik, a small business owner who ran a vintage restoration shop 2 towns over. "Call him. He owes me a favor. You're smarter than they'll ever be." I looked down at the card in my hand, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel like trash. I felt like something was finally beginning. The first few weeks at Malik's restoration shop were brutal. I swept sawdust from the floors, sanded antique bedposts until my fingers bled, and hauled vintage armoires heavier than my body weight. But Malik never raised his voice. He watched, listened. And when I finally handed him the reupholstered bench I'd worked on for 2 days straight, he simply nodded. "You've got grit," he said, "and that's rarer than talent." He didn't know what those words meant to me. I hadn't heard anything close to praise in years. I used the tiny stipend he gave me to buy a used burner phone and one change of clothes from a thrift store. I slept on a cot in the back room, kept my head down, and worked. Every night, I read up on design specs and wood staining techniques like my life depended on it. Because it did. By the 3rd month, Malik handed me a client of my own, a wealthy widow who wanted her late husband's roll-top desk restored. When she saw the final result, she cried. "I haven't seen it shine like this since our wedding," she whispered, running her fingers across the polished oak. She paid in cash, more than I'd made in 2 months combined. I stared at that envelope in the alleyway behind the shop, breathing in the cold air. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was building something. Meanwhile, my family hadn't called once. Not to ask if I was safe. Not to ask if I needed help. Not even to gloat. They had written me off like bad credit, no longer useful to their performance of perfection. But I hadn't forgotten. One night I Googled Lena. Of course, she had a public Instagram. Her latest photo? A luxury picnic set up in our backyard with champagne flutes and captioned, "When dead weight finally disappears, life tastes like rosé." The rage I thought I buried, it came back, not with chaos, with clarity. They were flaunting my disappearance. They celebrated abandoning me. I decided I wouldn't just survive. I'd eclipse them. So I went to community college night classes part-time, grinding for a 2nd degree in carpentry and design. By year 2, I had opened my own Etsy shop, reclaimed furniture, full restorations, and custom pieces. People loved it. Within months, I had clients across the state: interior designers, real estate stagers, even TV set decorators. My name? Not the one they gave me. I went by Rue Hart, a name I gave myself. No one knew where I'd come from. No one needed to. But that all changed one day when a familiar last name popped up in my inbox, Martha Brenton. My mother. She had no idea she was emailing me. The subject line? Inquiry for custom dining table urgent. I almost laughed. She wanted a custom piece for some real estate gala Lena was throwing in our old backyard, a fundraiser. One that required a statement centerpiece. She wanted a designer with grit and authentic vision. I took the job. And I made sure the quote was double my usual rate. They accepted without blinking. The delivery day arrived. I hired a driver. I didn't go. But I included a letter, folded neatly under the table's glass centerpiece. A letter only they would understand. And what did it say? Not revenge, not rage, just truth. You dragged me across the driveway like I was nothing, but I turned your driveway into my launching point. This table is the only piece of me you'll ever afford again. Rue Hart. The table? I designed it with etched, burned-in carvings along the underside. Silent, hidden, but readable if you looked close enough. It read, "Dead weight floats when you're made of stone." I heard later from Malik, who delivered it, that Lena nearly fainted when she read it. My mom? Apparently, she locked herself in her room during the gala and never came out. And my dad? He stormed out of the event, yelling about traitors and ingrates in front of 30 guests. It was perfect, but I wasn't done yet. I had one final move, and they'd never see it coming. The following winter, I got a letter in the mail with no return address, just a cheap envelope, sealed unevenly. Inside was a photo of my childhood home. For sale. The caption said, "Foreclosure pending." I stared at the worn-out shutters in the image, the same ones I used to paint every summer while my dad shouted corrections from his lawn chair. That house had been their temple, the altar where they sacrificed me to preserve their image. They were losing it. I didn't smile. I didn't laugh. But something inside me felt still. A week later, Malik sat across from me at the shop, sipping tea while I sanded down a walnut table. "You're gonna help them?" he asked quietly, like he already knew the answer. "No," I said. "I'm going to give them one last thing to cherish." The auction day came fast. I didn't attend it. Instead, I sent someone else, a young couple I'd helped months ago. I'd restored their storm-damaged furniture for free when no one else would touch it. They'd just had a baby. Struggling, kind people. They went in my place. And when the gavel fell, they won. The house, my prison, was no longer in my family's name. But that wasn't the revenge. That was just the shift. The revenge? It was what I did next. I asked the couple to wait 2 weeks before moving in. Just 2. Then I printed an invitation. On fine embossed cardstock. It read, "Open house celebration, a new beginning for 27 Birchwood Drive." I hand-delivered one to my parents. I hand-delivered one to Lena. And I stood across the street when they pulled up on the day of the open house, expecting maybe a reconciliation, maybe an apology party, maybe even a chance to reclaim what they lost. Instead, they were greeted by a handmade wooden sign in the lawn. This home was rebuilt with grace, not guilt. The young couple welcomed them with warm smiles, holding their baby. "You must be here for Rue," the woman said, eyes soft but steady. "She gave us everything." My father's face dropped. My mother blinked like she was trying to wake up. Lena turned red with confusion. I stepped out from behind the hedge. No makeup, no designer clothes. Just overalls, my stained work gloves still on, a clipboard in hand. They froze. "Why?" my dad finally barked. "You gave them the house? After everything After everything, yes," I cut in. "I gave it to someone who would never use the kitchen counter to bash my face, who would never scream at me from the staircase, who would never drag me across the gravel just to prove they could." Lena stepped forward. "You think this makes you better?" "No," I said. "This makes me free." She scoffed. "You could have helped us. You should have. You were our daughter." "You threw your daughter in a trash can," I said, smiling faintly. "You don't get to act shocked when she becomes recyclable." They left without another word. But not before I handed them one last thing. A wooden box, simple, polished, my final craft. Inside, a crushed soda can, an old photo of me in the trash, knees bloody, and a note that read, "You taught me what worthlessness looks like, so I gave it back." I never saw them again after that day. But once, maybe a year later, Lena emailed me under a different name asking for a commission. I declined, and blocked the address. Now I build custom pieces for people who know value, not just price. I use my name, my hands, my stories. Not for revenge anymore, but because I survived what they tried to destroy. And I made beauty from the broken wood they left behind. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments, from where are you watching this video?